Okay, so it's nice to see everyone. So let's do our usual and bring ourselves to in a unified way through vibration by doing our 3 ohms. Remember that when we do these 3 ohms, it's to help us also to remember that everything that comes out of our mouth affects other people. So when we're doing these ohms, it moves through your body and it's sacred. It's a sacred sound. And then it comes out and it'll fill your home up with that sound too. So remember, that sound is much better than right? So let's begin by, and I have a little, my voice is not as strong as it well, I don't really have a big voice anyway, but today it's a little smaller than usual. So bear me out, please. Om. 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 Ah, that's better. So, what have you been meditating on? What word have you been working on? Could it possibly have been courage? Yes. And the saboteur of courage is bravado. Seems like an unusual word to have as the saboteur for courage. But courage is a function of the heart. This is where it originates. Bravado is more of an intellectual kind of experience. So bravado always comes from the head, and it usually has some sort of justification for its presence. Whereas courage doesn't think, it responds. It's not reactionary, it responds. Bravado is more reactionary. And that's different. To respond and to react are very different. So a response in this way has more to do with the vibration of courage is about love because it comes from the heart. And like we talked a little bit last month, we have the obvious examples of courage, which is like a firefighter running into a burning house and saving people. And of course, that takes courage. I want to say that right away. And it's also a learned or conscious aspect of courage. So it's something that they have consciously taken upon themselves to do. So that act of consciously taking that on, of going through the training, doing all of that, and knowing that their life could be on the line, the underlying is courage. It's a really good thing. But that's not the kind of courage we're talking about. That's somebody who's made a choice to do this. But I wanted to acknowledge that it's not just firefighters, it's other people throughout the world that, they know that they could be putting themselves at risk for others. So courage doesn't always put us at risk for others, but it does help us to help ourselves to grow. And so one of the approaches to courage that I wanted to bring up to you is that courage fights fear. And fear is important for us to talk about today too, because fear can morph very easily into anger. So we know this like when you're walking, taking a walk around your neighborhood and there's a dog that comes up and he's feeling a little fearful, his little fur stands up and he might bare his teeth. It doesn't mean he's an angry dog. It means in that moment, he's having a reaction that has to do with fear. So when we have fear, fear can morph into harmfulness. So the more fear that we have, the more fearful, the more harmful we can become. Fearlessness makes us harmless. I know that sounds weird. I do, I get that. But harmlessness, because we have this tendency to think that fearlessness is like this, that's bravado. Fearlessness is very deep and very profound. So there's stories about the yogis showing fearlessness, because fearlessness, when a person is in a state of fearlessness, their heart is completely open and it fills the area around them with this love. And when that love comes out, then the people and the animals and the situation around that person who's practicing fearlessness in that moment, they become subdued because they're now in that feeling of fearlessness. So there's, like I said, there's lots of different stories that I've heard over the years about yogis and their encounters with animals. Swami Rama, who I've told you about, he's the one that he was very, very famous in his time, and people would come from all over the world to get a chance to see him. They would walk around in the Himalayas trying to find him because, you know, he was very much a hermit. And he was, yeah, I think that this is my word, he got perturbed. I'm sure he didn't, but that's my word with that. So what he did was, there was a sandbar on a river where he was meditating. And on that sandbar were crocodiles. And so what he did was he allowed himself to lay in the sun, he didn't lay down, he was in pose with the crocodiles in the sun on the banks of the river, so that the tourists would stay away from him. So they never bothered him because he was completely fearless. So when a person is totally fearless, you see, like that, it comes from the heart. It's love. And it reminds us that love is not an emotion. It's our inner strength. So the more that we can generate love, the stronger our mind becomes, the more healthy, the more strong we become. And as we have that strength, we don't have so much fear. We have a lot of fear because we don't feel like we can do something. You know, there's an exam coming up and we're like fretting and going, oh my God, I don't know if I can do it. I don't know if I can do it. So we put a lot of emphasis on what we would perceive as our weakness. You know, I can't do that because, oh my God, I've never been able to do that. And then you see how the vibration starts to move in me. It's quick because I'm focusing on my weakness. But when we focus on our strength, which is love, then it makes us have courage, makes us be able to face our fears. Love faces fears. Love is the ultimate in conquering fear. So you see, we don't really realize that spirituality is teaching us to love our own being. As you learn to love your own being more, you automatically love other people more. The more we focus on our weaknesses, the more we see other people as competitors, or, you know, we see their faults, we see their weaknesses, and we want to put them down and make sure they don't get a chance to get ahead of us. Like the dog that I was telling you about on the walk, you see? Animals and humans both react in fear in this way. So the more that we allow our feeling of weakness and we focus on that so much, then we limit ourselves by not being able to actually access the power to overcome. So what is it that we're overcoming? Fear. And everybody knows about fear. We all know about feeling weak too. It doesn't always mean that you feel like, oh, I'm so weak. It usually means like, I can't do that. Or when we get into extreme anxiety. So when we start to remember that there's a lot of things that are associated with fear. Now, when I talk about anxiety, please know that I'm doing this with compassion, not saying that a person who has anxiety is weak. I'm saying this because I have anxiety. From time to time, absolutely. Anybody that's intuitive suffers from anxiety because we're looking into the future. And we're looking out there, and what happens is that we start looking for what could go wrong. Well, this might not work, and that might not work. And we can get very caught up in worst case scenarios. And you know how that can be when you start like looking at, well, this could go wrong, and then what else could go wrong, and then what else could go wrong. And then the things that could go right, you start to think, well, that's just silly to look at the things that could go right. I need to know where all the bad things are. So we get so focused on what we perceive as all the bad things living in the forest that we forget that we have this power to overcome. The power over to come helps us also to sense where there's danger. So the more that we cultivate love inside of us, we're actually being warned, don't go down that street, because you're focused on your inner strength. Your inner strength is always there to protect you. Your inner strength can be called the universe, God, whatever, goddess, whatever you want to call it. I'm at peace with any sort of word that you want to call it. But what I'm talking about is love is another word for God. We always think of love as romantic, and of course it is, but romance has a lot of desire in it. So that's why we're not talking a whole lot about romance right now. We want to really see where love is what strengthens us, but we don't put enough emphasis on it as strength. So when you have a fear of failure, which who doesn't? Anybody ever not had that? Everybody has this fear of failure. So what happens, right? We feel like we might fail. So we look around and go, oh no, see, those people they're doing better than I am, and they're doing better than I am. Oh my gosh, I don't even know why I should even try. I can't do this. So again, we're so focused on our weakness that we forget about our greatness, which is the spiritual part of us that's immortal. You see, we have such a fear of death, such a fear. And, because you have a fear of death doesn't make it not happen. So, you gotta kind of like sometimes just look at this in a practical way. Just because you're afraid of it doesn't mean it won't happen, It's not going to reveal to you a way to avoid it. It's just not going to happen at all. But the more that we focus on love, then the more fearless that we become. You see, I'm saying it this way to get you more comfortable with understanding that fearlessness is something that you possess, that I possess, that we possess. We do. But we're not used to accessing it. We're not used to cultivating it. But the more fearless that we are, the more harmless our thoughts are, our words are, and our actions are. So as we promote harmlessness, automatically what that does is it builds a protection around us. Fearlessness is this protection from the crocodiles on the sandbar. It is. There's other stories about yogis meditating in nature in different places, and as they open their eyes, there's cobras there. What? You see, automatically, didn't that scare you? Just the thought of, opening your eyes and there's a cobra, but they're subdued. And the reason I wanted just to tell you that for just a moment is because the yogis do use cobras as an example of this. So like cobras, of course, when they're scared, they're going to hiss and they're going to try to strike. That's what we do. We hiss and strike when we feel like we're afraid too. Not a big difference there between cobras and humans, or cats for that matter. So, but there is this very interesting thing. The cobras, as well as humans, the cobras will respond to music. So that's why we have this thing that's called snake charmers. And they will actually play music and the cobra will sway to the music. Because that music draws them in. It's satisfying. Music can have love in it, of course, especially with the rhythm of it. When there's rhythm and there's not an erratic feeling of sound, but there's rhythmic sound, it draws you in. It makes you want to have that experience. So the cobra in us can also be soothed by oming, by doing mantras, chants, singing spiritual songs, affirmations, whatever your pleasure is, whatever is the best way for you to find solace, because that vibration is incredibly strong. And it's so strong that it can actually overtake the vibration of fear. So when we're going to a job interview and we're afraid that we're not going to get it, and we've been up all night, telling ourselves we're not going to get it, but we're going to go anyway and, show up, but I'm probably not going to get it no matter what. And we keep putting that vibration out. It's a vibration of aggravation. It's a vibration that is, it's harsh, it's jagged. And so the person sitting across from you, even though they don't realize it, they can feel that you're afraid you can't do it. So vibrationally, when another person can feel that vibration, they think this person isn't right for this job. They don't know that they're feeling this vibration of your fear, but that is what's happening. So it's important that we remember that fear is something that we really have to pay attention to more in the way of acknowledging that, oh my gosh, I'm having fear. Usually we call it stress, or we call it anxiousness or anxiety. We have lots of different words for it. But basically, those are all polite words for fear, because we can't really actually run around in society and say, oh my God, do you know how scared I am? I'm so scared. I'm so scared. So we say, I feel so anxious, or I feel so stressed about this whole situation. But that vibration is fear, and it moves like this. It's unpleasant, and it's unpleasant to be around. When somebody is really, really stressed out, they might be pacing because their mind is moving so much. When we pace, our whole body starts to mimic the pacing of the mind, the back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. It can also really shut us down to where we can't even participate. So we don't really think about being fearless. You don't really. I mean, when's the last time you thought to yourself, gosh, I really need to practice fearlessness more? We think I need to overcome stress, or I need to overcome anxiousness. And those are good too. I don't want you to think I don't think those words are good, because yes, they're descriptive of the situation. But to remember that they all come from the family of fear. So we all have that. So that vibration, make your teeth chatter, make your body chatter. That kind of feeling, of course, is fear. So I'm not saying fear is a saboteur in the sense that it's immoral. No. It's just something we're not familiar with that we can overcome through practice. So the more you know me, I'm the biggest nag about the word practice, because for me, that is the antidote to everything. So we want to practice fearlessness. So meditating on the word courage. And when I say meditating on the word, definitely, like if you have in the morning, if you have a practice where you sit for, I don't care if you sit for 5 minutes, you're doing it. Seriously, people will say, that's not enough for anything. Oh, I would never say that. If you're actually going to sit down and practice fearlessness for 5 minutes, that's better. That's much better. Much better. And if you do that 3 times a day, you got 15 minutes of practicing fearlessness. After a while, you'll start to accept that you feel better. That's the thing with spiritual practices, is that the more you do it, you begin to accept that you feel better. You feel more calm. When we're calm, it's an aspect of fearlessness. Because fearlessness does not make us feel calm. Fearfulness. You got to watch me. Fearfulness does not make us calm. It makes us vibrate. And the more you do that, the less likely you are to intuit what's going on around you and within you. Intuition requires calmness. The more fearful that we are, all we're going to do is generate and project fearful outcomes. So when we're doing tarot readings, it's really, really important to have a sense of calmness before you lay out your cards. Because if you lay them out and you're like, oh my God, what's going to happen? Holy cow, you're just going to scare you. And then you'll project it onto what the layout is, and you won't be able to see what might actually be there. All you'll see is a very painful kind of outcome, because we've projected that. So now we only interpret it that way, you see? So that goes the same thing, whether it's tarot or it's anything else. You have a situation at your work, in your work life, and you're like going in your head about it. And you're thinking, I've got to make sure that they don't get ahead of me. And I got to tell them how bad they are. That vibration starts to get so big that it moves out, and it will not create peace. And peace is extraordinarily important to cultivate, because again, it's a virtue, and all virtues are inner strength. They will protect you from the saboteurs that cause fear. So anger is a reflection of fear. We don't always think about it that way, but they are definitely related. When we start to get afraid and we're like, oh my gosh, anything could happen. I got to get ready for everything. Oh my God, and there could be people that are coming around me. And then you're like, and they don't have any right to do that. And then before you know it, you want to harm them, whether it's valid or not. So the more that we practice fearlessness, it won't make us like crazy outside going, I can do it. Bah! That's bravado. That's bravado. We don't want to practice bravado. We want to practice courage. So that's why I tell you about the yogis, right? The yogis have this fearlessness because they have become so aware of their immortality. We're not aware of our immortality. We're aware of aging and our mortalness, which makes us afraid of death, which makes us afraid of breaking up, which makes us afraid of any sort of loss or something coming to an end. All those things are little deaths that we go through in life. And we'll do anything that we can not to have a loss. The loss still happens. And then how do we help ourselves? We don't. Trauma is one of those things that is a lot about fear, of course, just the word, something bad has happened. And what did it do? It created this vibration inside of the person. So now maybe they had a very traumatic experience early on in their life, now in their 20s or their 30s, and there's a semblance of a replication of that event that happened in their life currently. And what it does is it causes that is an echo. So the event that happened still reverberates. So trauma is an echo. It's not happening again, but it makes us feel as if it is, or it has the potentiality of happening again. And it makes us very frightened. And when we're frightened, we shake. You see, when your body is shaking, your mind is shaking. And that's an important connection to make. So one of the reasons that we meditate is to calm the mind. But people associate calmness with weakness. No. If it were easy to attain, everybody would be calm. Anger is very easy because it's available every day of the week. Everybody has it, and it's contagious, and you can get it from being in other people's presence who are really suffering from it. It's very, very contagious. Because it is, you're around it and suddenly you're like, people are like, yeah, and da-da-da-da. And we're like, really? Well, I want to join on that bandwagon right now. Yeah, let's go get them. Okay. And then you get them, and then what do you do? Okay, You see what I'm saying? We have to like help ourselves to know that bravado is not courage. So I'm not saying to you, just do nothing. No, you see, these things are very difficult to understand until we start to really practice them, because we don't trust that calmness is strength. We don't trust that peace is strength. We're like, oh, that's just a neutral feeling. That's nothing, you know. I really want to feel. I want the passion. Well, who said that calmness isn't passionate? Not me. I didn't say that, because I don't feel that way. I'm very, very passionate about the cultivation of spirituality. I am. I'm very passionate about it because it helps me to feel very alive. It helps me to do more things that I think that I can't do. It helps me to trust myself more. It helps me to go, okay, little bites. If you try to do the whole thing, it's like stuffing a whole pizza in your mouth. It won't work. Sometimes you have to take the tiniest little bites when you're dealing with something that you're afraid of, you know, little bites, until you start to cultivate that feeling that you're there to take care of you. When we meditate on courage, we're also meditating on trust. To trust the self, to have faith in in yourself. So when you have faith in yourself, you see, you know that you're always there for you. Now, again, this is one of those things that people go, yeah, great, I'm there for me, but other people aren't there for me, and that's what I really want. How many people can come to you that will make you feel content? When they come to you, they're probably feeling as empty as you are. So we have two empty people here trying to fill the other one up, probably won't work. You want to come to the table as full as possible so that you're more unafraid to give. Because we become very afraid to give because we feel like we don't have enough to give. And then we start thinking, well, if I give too much, then they won't give properly back to me. And then we start measuring who's giving what to who. And, you know, it's always going to come out that you're getting the short end of the stick. And then what does that do? It makes us angry. And then we're like, you got to speak up and tell them that they're not giving enough. Okay, then you tell them that and they're like, what are you talking about? I feel the same way about you. And you're like, how can you? I've been giving this whole time. Now, does it look like I'm really giving? It's a hard thing because, again, we think that's passion. You know, passion originally meant pain. Isn't that interesting? So that's why the word compassion, calm means with. C-O-M means with. So with passion. So when you show someone compassion, this is inner strength, because you're actually looking at that person and you're feeling their pain because you can relate. The circumstances can be radically different, but the feeling ultimately is the same. Pain feels like pain, right? We can call it grief. We can call it loss, whatever you want to call it, but it's still pain. So compassion is a recognition of that pain that you feel in the other, and it touches your heart. It touches your heart and it opens you up, and you find yourself wanting to flow and show them it's okay. You can do this. You're going to heal. You're going to get through this. I know too, because I've been through this. And it's so comforting. You see, compassion is powerful stuff. It's powerful medicine. Everybody wants to be seen and heard. And one of the most efficient ways to be seen and heard is to acknowledge it for someone else. Because when you acknowledge to them that you see them, you see their pain, you feel their pain, you hear their pain. The interesting thing is that there's this energy that's flowing from you that you have awakened. In that moment, you have awakened your inner strength. The minute you open up your inner strength, it has to flow out from you, because that's the nature of love. It flows. So when you show someone compassion, it's awakening inside of you. So not only have you given it to the other person, but it's moving through you. It's healing you. It's helping you to feel your own pain and to know that you have the power to overcome, which is why they can feel it. They see that you see it in them. They feel it from you. They know you're not just saying to them, oh, you'll get over it. You'll be all right. You'll be all right. Yeah, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. You can tell, you see, even when I'm doing that, that's not compassion. Because sometimes we get afraid when we see people in pain. You got to get better. We can't, like we don't want to see people that we really love having fear. So we just tell them, you're going to be fine. You're going to be fine. You're going to be fine. It's going to be fine. Yeah. Don't you worry about a thing. So if you see yourself doing that, but you have to walk away and say that you feel that way towards someone in a moment, you have to go home. You go home, reflect on what happened, and know that you were doing your best in that moment. In that moment, that was the best you could do. Okay? But then when you get home and you're reflecting on it, know that you can do more. So when you're at home and you're by yourself, and you remember that moment where you were fretting with them, rather than being able to give them that compassion, say their name out loud and send them peace, peace, peace. And as you do that, it moves through you, it moves through the air, and it touches them. I know this is hard to accept because we don't realize that our thoughts they move out of our head. We're all kind of thick-skulled, so it gives us this illusion that all of our thoughts stay in our head. And even if that was true, if you think weak thoughts about yourself, that vibration moves all through your body and you become weaker than you were the day before. So the more that we focus and help ourselves to remember, vibration, sound is radically important to acknowledge our sense of responsibility. What I mean by this is that we live in very difficult times. You don't need me to tell you that. It's all over the world. It's in everybody's neighborhood, their country, everywhere. Everybody has this, being in a really big hurry to show people how brave they are, or overcome, or I've got the answer, and we're gonna make these people see that they don't know what they're doing. And all of these things are really, really big and very, very present in the world, which basically means we are living in a very fearful time. Everybody's suffering from fear. And the more that we have this fear, the more anger we have. The more anger we have and we don't do anything about it, we become very resentful. And that can make us stew on things so much that we can become revengeful. Who knew that revenge came from fear? But in its infant phase, it's fear. And if fear goes untreated, it morphs into all of these examples of anger. So what does revenge get us? Satisfaction that we hurt somebody? I mean, really, that's what it is. When we get revenge, we want them to feel pain. When we feel compassion, we want them to feel seen. When we feel revenge, we want them to feel seen, but we want them to feel pain. compassion means we want them to understand. We see their pain and love flows there to help to reduce that pain. Which is stronger, revenge or compassion? It takes courage. It takes heart to want to give to people. Because it's very easy to say, I don't understand why I have to give to these people. Why don't they take care of themselves, for God's sake? What's wrong with them? Oh my God, we have to pay for this person and pay for that and help them. And why don't they just help themselves? I do everything for myself. Well, good. But why are you so upset about it? Why do you have to say that in anger? Because why? Are you afraid that if you give, that somehow or other they might pass you up? They might get a better opportunity? You feel that it's unfair? How could that possibly be unfair to give? You see, we always want to give to our family. Well, not always. We take that back. But generally speaking, we want to give to our family and to our friends. But if you're outside of the circle of family and friends, then we want to criticize you and tell you that you're bad and you don't deserve any help. And why don't you help yourself? So you see how ridiculous this becomes? Which is it? Which is the truth? Is everybody totally ridiculous and bad and they don't deserve any help? And just help your own? That will never work. Will never work. No. Remember that we live in vibration. Everything is vibration. Everything is. And we know that. You know, there's a little village that I have gone to many times now in India. And in that little village, it's such an interesting thing because it's become kind of like a little city because so many people go there now. But it's still a little village. And there's all of the hubbub and all the different things that are going on. But in that village, there's this interesting phenomena that happens where there's these places there that are so sacred because of the power of love that has been infused there. It has made them so sacred that when you walk into that space, if you're not used to it, you might be like, what's that? What is that? Because sacredness, sacred love has this vibration that you can really feel. And it's interesting because I'm thinking of a particular space there in that little village. And it's, it's not pretty. It's just this little area. It's not. And, it looks plain, and it's down this tiny little street where, there's just, people doing their deal. And you walk through this gate and there's all this hubbub going on all around you in this tiny little space. And it makes you go, what is that? It's love. It's love in its most concentrated form. It's pure. It's there for everyone. It will probably never go away. Why would it? You see, that's hard to understand. I think it's hard to understand. I've felt it. And every time I go back there, it's the same. It's the same. There it is. And it affects me. And then when I come back, it's still there. But interestingly enough, over the years, when I would come back, I could feel it diminish inside of me. So it started to teach me to honor my practice more, because as I can honor my practice more, I begin to regenerate that feeling more. And I want to live in that feeling because I tasted the nectar sweetness. And I don't want to live in a body that's doing this all the time. I don't want to live in a mind that's doing this all the time. Because if your mind is doing that, not only will you pace, but it'll make you want to lash out. It makes the body stiff and unreceptive. You see, whatever you're thinking affects your whole body. And it doesn't stay in your body because your body, it's not solid. It just appears to be. So whatever you're thinking moves all through your body. And then it moves through your environment. It moves through your loved ones. You see, that's inner strength. Always remember, love is the strongest thing that you'll ever come in contact with. And it's already, the seed of that is always with us because you love people, don't you? There are people that you absolutely love. There are people that we would give our life for in a heartbeat. And then there's some people that live on the planet that they would do that for anyone, a total stranger, equally the same as their beloved mother. You see, the more that we cultivate this love, the more that we don't want other people to suffer. When we cultivate love, we want to see other people's pain in the sense of I see. We want to have the ability to see that. So like in my job, sitting across from people, very few people come into my space that aren't in pain. So pain is one of these things that we've had quite a relationship over all of these years in a very intimate way because people tell me about their pain and they've taught me to be very still. I wouldn't have been able to teach myself that, really. I'm pretty sure. But being with people that are in pain and seeing them look so imploringly at me, like, do something. I know I can't do something except make sure that I stay as centered as possible. No criticism, no judgment, no feeling of, I got the answer, don't you worry, I'm coming to your rescue. That can't enter into me. Because I'm not even aware of having an answer for people. But my practice has taught me to be unafraid. I wish I could tell you I'm completely unafraid, but I'm not. But it's taught me to be more unafraid of being around pain than I ever have been. We get very afraid to be around pain. Oh, I don't want to go over there. Those people are hurting, or they have a really bad situation going on. Ugh. Again, if you can't be there in person because it's too much for you, okay, recognize that. But don't ignore your ability to help them, to send them love. Why not? Why not send love to children, little children? Think of how interesting little children are. What do they want the most? They want to be seen. They want to be loved. They want to see you smile at them. Right? So adults are just stretched out children. So adults want the exact same thing that children want. There's not a big difference between adults and children. We're the same plant. We're just bigger now. That's all. We have the same needs as children. It's easy for most people to give compassion to children. They're adorable for one thing. But there's this interesting innocence, and you don't want to hurt them. You don't want to shatter their confidence. You're careful with them. So what happens that makes us not want to do that with adults? We look at adults and we're like, get your own love. Why do I have to take care of you? I just don't get it. I'm always doing everything. If I were always doing everything, that would make me incredibly strong. And I probably wouldn't be complaining about I do everything. That's why I say that, so you know that we all have that feeling, you see. So love always replenishes. Always. When someone's on their deathbed and you go to see them, you're very careful with them. You're careful about what you say. You're careful about the tone that you use. You're careful to touch them sweetly. And even if it's somebody you had a hard time with, you're going to be careful with them at that moment. So again, we're careful with children. We're careful with the dying. But that in-between thing, we're ready to go to blows with each other. So it's important for us to wake up and go, yeah, what is that? Life is kind of scary, you know, and we're always afraid that we're not going to get our fair share. You know, we're afraid that others are going to get ahead of us, or they're going to take advantage of us, or whatever it may be, instead of focusing on our own strength, our own magnificence, so to speak. We focus so much on being weak that we don't support ourselves. We don't show up for ourselves and encourage ourselves and go, no, 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 no. You got this. You got this. You got this. You can do this. You can do this. I help myself that way. Because of course, there's times when I can feel that fear moving through me, you know, vibrating. You know, who doesn't know that feeling? We all know this feeling. But we don't want to reduce ourselves to bravado. I can do it, and I'm going to crush those people. No need for that. Besides, that vibration that you put out, it'll affect those people that you're thinking about, and eventually it'll return to you. Everything does this. That's how the universe works. It's circular. We could call it karma, but most people think of karma as deserving. Has nothing to do with deserving. Has nothing to do with being punished or rewarded, even though you feel like you're being rewarded or you feel like you're being punished. It's not happening. That's just a mortal way of thinking about things. It's not a universal way of thinking of things. When we think bigger, more universally, we realize there's no such thing as reward and punishment. It's much more profound than that. We've been putting people in a prison for, I don't know, thousands of years. Did it eliminate crime? No. We've been hurting each other, going to war, torturing one another for thousands of years. Does it make us better? Does it make us stronger? No, of course not. We're still doing the exact same thing. Exact same thing. It doesn't matter. It's 2023. There's wars going on all over the world. Yeah. Wars in families, wars in countries, wars everywhere. People are complete odds with each other, totally afraid of other people, which means you're very afraid of being taken over. So no matter where you live, no matter what's going on in your life, you have you. And I have had people roll their eyes at me. Oh, yeah, like having you is second best or last, I don't know. But you have you, and it's your responsibility to be able to nourish love to move through you. Love from others, it's like when other people give you love, it's like, well, they don't treat me well. I've never been treated well. I don't know why I have to be good. You know, nobody understands that I've been through hell. I don't know that that's true, that nobody understands, but you have to understand yourself. You have to be thoughtful to yourself. Because if you're not, it's going to vibrate to you that nobody cares. You're never going to get ahead. And it's going to create more trauma. So it's going to create more of these negative things that go on. And those sounds are going to go out. They're going to track situations that bring that back to you and make you remember that other things have happened to you before. Trauma makes it feel like it's happening when it's not. It's very painful, and it deserves deep compassion because people are hearing it again and again and again. The more we put hate out and revenge and all of these different things, it keeps coming back and creating new situations that makes those situations get bigger and bigger and bigger until now we're all living in it. We're all living in this bubble where there's all of this that's going on, and it's like this. And you see people walking like this. You see people like politicians walking like this, and leaders and different people. It's like, oh my gosh. I don't think that's appropriate. We have to learn to be calm inside and understand calmness takes great strength, which is why most people don't have it. It's not because it's a weakness and we should avoid it. It's the great strength that gets imparted to us by the practice of love. It won't make it so that you're weak and other people will overtake you. Calmness is inner strength. So as their vibration of whatever it is, anger that comes towards you, the more that you're calm, what happens is that your energy opens up. It creates a strength. And as that energy of negativity comes towards you, it actually moves through you. It moves through you. It doesn't get stuck in you. But if you like really resist it, you're like, ah, all you're doing is saying that you caught that energy from them and now you're returning it back. And then it gets bigger and bigger and bigger until now we have to do this with each other instead of this. So it's very important that you remember that courage lives in your heart every day. And it takes courage to overcome negative habits, whether it's physical negative habits, eating, all those things, emotional habits, being too hypercritical, whatever it might be. Look at those things. And instead of thinking of yourself as bad or weak or thinking, yeah, but, let that part go. And help yourself to breathe and to establish a practice of calmness. If you don't practice calmness, it's not going to be available when you need it. People take their guns to a gun range and practice how to shoot it so that they can have it available for when they feel like they need it. Me personally, I practice calmness. That would be my weapon of choice. And I want to have enough of it so that when my calmness is threatened by someone else, I can maintain my safety and theirs too. I don't have to get rid of them. I can live with them, knowing that I'm here for me and knowing that they're not there for themselves. They're living in complete fear. And the more that they're living in fear, it makes me step back a little bit because I know that that could come and hurt me. Just like if a dog has too much fear and he's not trained how to like calm down, then he can attack a person. See how that works? So over this next month, so I just wanted to tell you that. So I have taken this word courage and I am going to work on it for this entire year. I'm going to work on every single virtue that we're working on month to month to month during this next year. But I'm also using the word courage I've never had this as a word, I'm pretty sure. And I've just kind of fallen in love with it over this last month. And so I'm going to stay with it for this whole year. Now, the word for what month are we going into? February. So the word for February, to meditate on. Remember, to meditate on it means to practice it, to be aware that you have it in your mind. Let yourself insert it into conversation, practice it, physically out in the world. So the word for February is the word peace. And the saboteur this time, because there could be lots of saboteurs for peace, but the saboteur for peace is going to be outrage. So there's always a place for the saboteur, but it needs to be minimalized so that the virtue is not only the shining star, but it's the main ingredient inside of you. Remember, peace takes a lot of practice. It does. Again, this is why you don't see it out in the world. We don't practice peace. We practice outrage. And it's very easy to stir up other people's emotions for our cause by showing them how outraged we are. So there's a place for outrage, but it has to be minimal, comparatively speaking, to the antidote, which is peace, the practice of peace. Help yourself to not think of peace as nothingness, as weakness. Help yourself to remember that peace is so strong that every human on the entire planet craves peace. You don't have to believe me about that, but put your attention on it during the month of February, and you'll see that that's what you want. If you have a troubled romantic life, what you really want is for it to be peaceful. If you have troubled physical things happening in your body, you want your body to be at peace. That's what you want. You want it. So I'm reminding you that that's really what you want, so that you remember that's what you're always looking for. And it's elusive because we don't practice it. So the more you practice it in yourself, you're not going to be waiting for somebody else to give it to you. Because they might for the moment, or they might not, because they haven't had the practice. But if you practice it, no matter where you go, it's accessible to you. And if you have that, it'll help your mind to come to solutions to any problem in a more pure way, which means your solutions will be stronger and have the strength and the ability to stay with you for a longer period of time. Peace, that's what we want. When we speak about those that have moved on from this dimension into the next, what do we wish them? Peace. We say, rest in peace. Remember that that's what we really want, whether a person's embodied or they're outside of their body. That's what we really do want. So I hope that you'll enjoy your practice of peace and consider the word outrage, and we'll see how things go, right? I think I could probably do this. I know, okay. So sorry, my energy today is not as strong as I would like for it to be. So I'm asking if you would mind just kind of sending your questions to me rather than me staying, right? Is that
Email me.
Email me, yes. And I will answer those for you. I apologize. Normally I like to stay. I want to now, but my teammate here is reminding me that it's probably not such a good idea.
Blame me.
What?
Blame me.
No. So let's do 3 more ohms together, and then all right, and we'll close that way. May peace be with you. Namaste.
Nisha said happy birthday.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Jacqueline.
Thank you. Peace to you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, love.
Thank you.
Thank you, my dear.
And the new love. Bye.
Bye, everyone.